Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. Got 3 videos for you. 2 of them come from Houston Police and one of them actually comes from Lakewood Church. I'll play the first 2 videos where they talk about their security and a little bit about the event. And then the third video is going to be the critical incident video that Houston Police released, where they showed body cam footage and security camera footage from the incident. Once I play that, then I will go into the breakdown of the event. All right, here we go.
I'm Assistant Chief Keith Cephas of the Houston Police Department. This critical incident briefing is intended to provide you with information about an officer-involved shooting that occurred in Houston on February 11th, 2024. You're about to see video footage related to this incident. Some of the videos are from security cameras and do not contain audio. The body-worn camera from one officer was activated late. Another officer was unable to activate her body-worn camera. HPD conducts thorough investigations into officer-involved shootings. These typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, view numerous hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. It is important to note that we are in the very early stages of the investigation and we continue to review additional evidence as it is collected and analyzed. The videos you are about to see can be graphic and may be difficult to watch. These videos may also contain strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. At approximately 1:53 p.m., Genesee Yvonne Moreno drove a white SUV up to the west entrance of Lakewood Church. She took her 7-year-old son out of the back seat of the SUV and entered the church lobby wearing a trench coat, a backpack, and carrying an assault-style rifle underneath her coat, along with the bag containing a second rifle. Ms. Moreno attempted to enter the sanctuary, but the entrance doors were locked. An off-duty HPD officer working as church security was notified by a Lakewood church volunteer that Ms. Moreno had a gun. The officer immediately observed Ms. Moreno. She and the officer exchanged gunfire. A Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission agent, also working security for the church, heard the gunfire and approached Ms. Moreno as she was firing her rifle. He fired his duty weapon at her. Ms. Moreno shouted, "Stop shooting," claiming to have a bomb. The TABC agent told Ms. Moreno to put her weapon down, but she refused. The agent fired his duty weapon again, striking her. She was declared deceased at the scene. Ms. Moreno's 7-year-old son was struck by gunfire. HFD administered aid to the child before transporting him to the hospital in critical condition. A 47-year-old man from the church was shot in the hip. He was transported to the hospital for his injuries and later released. After a thorough search of the area, no bomb was found. No one else was injured.
Are you gonna die? Lakewood Church, Lakewood Church, Lakewood Church.
You killed my son! Stand down! Have a bomb! Have a fucking bomb! Stay calm, all I need is help!
I got 1 female shooting rifle. I'm pinned down on against the wall corner.
Grab your player!
I went out to shoot on the west side, 3700.
All I need is help! I need help! That's all.
Can you hear me? One second. Turn the launch. Yeah, back in.
I just need help! Stop shooting! Put the weapon down!
Suspect saying she got a bomb.
Put the weapon down! There's a bomb! Put the weapon down! I won't. The bomb is not going. Down, down!
Blue, 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 blue. Blue, 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 blue.
Hey, we need a medic! We need a medic immediately! Put the weapon down!
Hold on, watch out.
Hey, who has a radio?
I can shoot this shit down. I need a medic. I have one young male conscious and breathing. He got shot in the head. I need medics. Kill him.
We need a medic. There's 223 shell casings. I thought she had a 12. You just want shooter?
Yeah, I just see one. She just came in. You okay? Y'all been shot? Hold on. She got a fucking bomb. That's the problem. I already called EMS. I need EMS ASAP.
You have a kid? Tell me.
Yeah, I already did. What's the fucking address over here? Fuck. Timmons Lane. Timmons Lane. I need him at 3700 Timmons Lane side. Adrian, stay back. I'm gonna start starting route. Is there anybody else who's been shot? Hold on. Hold on.
You got gloves? Anybody got gloves? You got gloves?
I got gloves. I got gloves. What do you need?
Okay, take the weapon. Put the gloves
Hold on.
Where you shot at?
No, that's the shooter. That's the shooter. Hold on. Watch out. Hold on. No.
No, don't use your fingers.
Tim inside. Suspect is down. I need EMS ASAP for one small child.
I think there was about 6 to 8 that they actually put as part-time employees. I don't know how they did it with their agency.
What is it? What are people running? Ladies, you don't let me in el nombre de Jesús.
Choir log. Choir area.
3639. Here at Lakewood Church, we need units now. We are Lakewood Church. We need units at Lakewood Church. We need to go. We need to get closer. Oh, they're coming. My camera's not working. Come on.
Over here for the unit on scene, please.
The round? What if we went around? We need to go.
Shit on the way from.
He's probably coming. Careful. Let's approach. We need to approach. Come on. Come on. We need to approach. Father God, just be with us. Forgive us our sins. Come on. Come on. What the fuck?
She's up. She's up. She may have a bump. You need to call SPD. You need to call SPD.
Well, I already got them called.
Hey, we need a medic. We need a medic immediately. Here. Put the weapon down.
Hold on, what's up?
It might be a bomb. Hey, who has a radio? You guys are ready?
Yes, we already got it.
We need a bomb squad.
We may need bomb squad.
We don't know yet. We have a kid that's down. Possibly bullet. We need a medic. Hey, get a medic. 2, 2, 3. Hit a showcase. Hey, is this just one shit?
You okay? You got me shot?
We need to, should we approach?
Hold on, she's got a fucking bomb.
She might have a bomb here.
That's the problem. I already called EMS.
Have EMS roll up here.
I need EMS ASAP.
You have a kid, tell them.
Yeah, I already did. What's the fucking address?
Yeah.
It's okay.
They won't just carry you. Half of us are PPAs.
Where's my ambulance at? We have a child that's down. We need vitamins. Circle Drive.
Clear units, keep the channel health one. Number 2, do you have the description?
No, ma'am.
Sir.
I don't know. She may have a bump. She needs to close. You got to close it. You need to close to me. 42 item 28 is going to be a female. She's down right now. We need a medic. We need a medic immediately. We have a kid.
Number 2, repeat.
Shooter is down. Looks like she has something strapped on her chest. We need a bomb squad.
Sir, do you know if we have any more outstanding?
We don't know yet. We have a kid that's down. Possibly bullet to his head.
Hey, get him in.
223. Kill case.
Sir, is anyone out there with you?
We have other officers out here.
Sir, we have EMS stage. Let me know when they can move up.
I got no radio.
That's the problem. I already called you.
Have EMS roll up here at
Sam 17 over 28. Take a breath, conduct yourself, and let us know. Can we release the channel and have EMS move up?
Hey, Sergeant, we're good right now. She has something strapped on her. We're trying to figure it out.
All right, so the mayor, he does a pretty good job there, doing some preaching. I think he kind of misses calling there a little bit. So not a whole lot from this video to really talk about, but their footage showing the inside of the church is kind of one I wanted to talk about just a little bit. See if I can get, there we go, get a good screenshot here. So look at the size of this building, at least the interior of it. And this is what I believe what they call the sanctuary. So I've never been to this place before, and trying to find a map of the place and stuff like that, it's not very easy. But I believe that this is what they call their sanctuary, and then on the outside of that would be the interior of the building, kind of where you see the security camera footage of where the gunfight occurs. This building used to be the Compact Center, and it holds like 16,000 people. I want to say it's like 16,800 people. That's a lot of people. And when you think of a building of that size and holding that many people, the security planning that goes into place is huge. this is essentially a little small town within a big town. Aside from just the security planning stuff, you have to think that they probably have to have their own full-time maintenance person there at, especially during service hours at all times, in the event that, the air breaks or some type of plumbing issue occurs, etc. They have to have basically their own waste management team on site during these services, kind of like having their own little garbage company on site, people who are continuously going around emptying trash cans and picking up waste and stuff like that. Probably on top of that, there's probably kind of like when you go to an airport, there's always people cleaning bathrooms and cleaning and stuff. So I'd imagine on these big days that there's a whole team of workers just doing stuff left and right. The overhead team, the people who are there in the building when, there's no services going on, just doing the upkeep of everything, running that business, running that building. There's a lot that goes into it. And then when you bring in the security and safety standpoint, going in a safety standpoint, there's probably somebody in charge of fire-related stuff, making sure that they're in compliance for their fire code, making sure that all the fire extinguishers are charged and inspected and up to date, and making sure that all their exit signs are working and all that stuff, and then the security stuff of it. So you could see when they were talking about their security personnel, and go to this freeze frame right here to kind of bring them in the view. What we see is what they call their MAs, their ministry assistants, and then their security personnel. So how many of these people walking around in suits they have, I don't know. I'd imagine there's probably a little bit more than what's on screen here. And then these two people here who are wearing kind of a more cliche security uniform type of outfit. How many of people like this are there? Well, I don't know. I'd say there's probably at least a couple more like that. And then from the video, you could see that there were uniformed officers there. So they have a multiple layered system of security utilizing plainclothes people, uniformed security people, and uniformed police officers. With their plain clothes, this could be a mix of off-duty officers, and it could also be a mix of just regular security professionals. It can depend, from church to church, as far as who they utilize in these kind of roles. When it comes to their actual uniform security personnel, this could be...
And I knew it right off.
Sorry about that. This could be their own internal security people who work for the church itself, or this could be a contract companies, like Allied or something like that. I have no idea about these people. I don't know if they're contract security or if they're actually hired by the church itself. The plainclothes people are most likely hired by the church. They could also be contract security. They could be, from some private security firm that Lakewood Church has hired to, do their services, or they could be working directly for the church. The uniformed police officers that they have, there's a couple different ways that they could be working. The church could be paying the municipalities to provide police officers, and therefore those uniformed officers are on the clock and they're working for the municipality, but they're assigned to this location here. Or they could be completely off duty, not on the clock as a city officer or sheriff deputy, and be working directly for the church, but still allowed to wear their police uniform. Some places allow that, some places do not. Of the places that do not allow that, I agree with why they do not allow that, because that kind of opens liability up to them when they're using city issued or county issued equipment and uniforms and stuff like that, and then working in a private capacity and doing stuff for a private company, and using the name and the weight of that governmental entity with their uniform, but not actually being on the clock with that governmental entity. And that's especially important when it comes to like workers' comp type of issues as well. But that's kind of a little bit of a breakdown on, you know, how their security is working for the entity itself. They could either be working directly for the entity or they could be from other entities. So when it comes to private security, a lot of places will utilize a private security company who furnishes guards. And it's almost like a temp agency of sorts, but a more specialized type of temp agency. You know, the regular thing with a temp agency is you reach out to the temp agency and say, hey, I need 10 people to come work for me. And they're like, okay, do some paperwork, and then boom, you get 10 laborers who will do work for you. Security is the same way, right? It's just a little bit more specialized, I guess you could say. With as many people as they have working security, and that the fact they have uniformed officers working security, I would say that, and you know, based off the church itself, Lakewood Church, right? I would say they've got a pretty big payroll, or at least a pretty big budget to spend on security. So they kind of have a little bit of the Cadillac, so to speak, when it comes to security, because they have all this different type of security there, and they've got the money to be able to have them there. Other churches, you know, depending on sizes and whatnot, you know, they may not have enough money to be able to have this kind of security in place, and they may not have the kind of budget to have other things in place. Like, I can guarantee you that there's probably a person who works a control room in this church who just monitors security cameras, and that's it. Would all places like to be able to do that? Certainly. Can they afford to do that? No. Why? Because it costs a whole lot of money to pay someone to sit there and watch cameras and watch the monitors on the exterior, the radio systems in place. You know, for, you know, you see some of these guys, they got little ear mics in, little earpieces in, a whole radio infrastructure in itself. That can be a lot of money. So this church is just fortunate to have that kind of money, to have the level of security that they have. Now, even with all that money that they have to pay for their security and have all these things in place, their security just damn near failed when this event occurred. We have what looks to be only 2 people who were committed to being engaged in the fight. One being armed, and the other did not appear to be armed at all, but was up there at the front lines of it all. And then you have multiple uniformed police officers who do almost nothing and appear to be afraid to do anything. So even despite having all that money thrown at their security system, or their security approach, it almost failed. And when the chief talks about, you know, if she would have made it into the sanctuary, if she had made it in there, it could have been bad. Now, what kind of security they have on the inside, don't know. Even if I did know, I probably wouldn't want to, you know, discuss, you know, more specifics or anything like that. But it could have been a situation where she could have had several seconds to just start firing into the crowd before someone on the inside could have done something. And based off what we saw of the people on the outside, who almost did nothing except for one person, well, technically 2, but only one was armed. Out of all those people on the outside, and only 2 doing anything, what would the inside have been like? Would we have seen that same kind of response where there's multiple people in there, but the majority appearing to be afraid to do anything, and only one wanting to go for it? I don't know. It's obviously hard to say. But anyway, let's jump out of this and let's go into the breakdown of the event itself. All right, so a little bit more about security stuff. So here at this entrance area, and I don't know if this is their main front entrance or anything like that, but you can tell that this is a normal entrance that has a high influx of people. They have the painted lines right here on the ground, and it appears as though they have this set up for at least 3 lanes of vehicles to be able to, what appears to be, pull up, drop people off, and or pick people up. So this right here would be another, or this would be an area of concern for security planning, because you have a whole lot of people here at this front entrance, or this entrance area. And with vehicles and, just people being crappy drivers in general, this would be an area where you would want security at. Now, obviously the service has already started at this point, and it's obvious that there's not a whole lot of people out front. So at this point in time, it may not be necessary to have a whole lot of security out front. Now, when there's, a bunch of vehicles out front, service hasn't started yet, people are arriving, getting ready, yeah, that would make sense to have a whole lot of security personnel out front, or at least, a noticeable amount of security personnel out front to be able to deal with any traffic congestion issue, someone's car dying, trying to speed people up, etc. But more importantly, being a show of presence and being able to detect things. We know from the description that she has the rifle under her jacket. I just don't know if she has that rifle as she gets out of the car, or when she goes around to the passenger side and gets her kid and is then messing around in that doorway for a few seconds and then walks away. So, not sure, but eventually when she walks away, we see her jacket swaying open. And so if there were security people outside, even if there's 1 or 2 people out in this entrance area, or this parking lot area, if there was people out there, that could have been an opportunity for them to see that rifle, either from the jacket swaying open and they seen the whole thing, or potentially seeing the rifle barrel sticking out from under her jacket, or to see it as they got closer to her to figure out why she is stopping her vehicle and parking it in this lane and then abandoning it. Right? Like, that's not a normal thing. This is a driving lane. Yeah, you may temporarily stop to let people out, but you should not be parking your car, throwing the hazard lights on, and then getting out and leaving it completely. If there were security personnel outside, that would have been a red flag to someone to be like, hey, this is abnormal. This should not be going on. I need to go over here and make sure that this is being handled, and getting this vehicle moved out of the way, because 1, it's going to impede vehicle traffic coming in at closing time, and then secondly, it's a fire lane. So you can see right here, there's a red painted line, red painted curb right here, and you also see what looks like white lettering right here, probably denoting that it is a fire lane. So that's another big issue. You don't want vehicles blocking the fire lane. You don't want vehicles blocking that entrance area where an ambulance may be parking at. So if they had security outside, at least maybe 1 or 2 people, even after the huge crowd died down and, not a whole lot more people were coming in, they still could have potentially done something to stop this from going further than what it did. Now, it could be that, if there was one person outside and they were walking towards that vehicle to be like, hey, what the heck are you parking here for? She could have, pulled down on them and shot them down and then moved into the door. Yeah, that's a possibility too. But still, the fact remains that it's plausible that if they had security outside, They could have either A, went over to engage with her and figure out why she's parking this vehicle here and then trying to leave it, and then potentially see the rifle at that point, or as she's moving around and they're outside, they could have seen the rifle at some point and then acted on that. So a little bit of a failure point right there, I think. Now, they do have security on the inside. This guy right here. So this appears to me that this is probably his assigned area. This is where he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be, I think, monitoring people coming in through that door. But what's he doing? He's playing on his damn phone. Not paying attention to what the hell's going on around him. The front entrance area. There's glass doors. There's, glass up there that you can look to the outside. I don't know this with any certainty, but it's plausible that had he not had his face glued into that damn phone and was looking out the windows and was watching, he could have seen the vehicle pull up, her get out, and then start to leave it, and then he could have been like, hey, why is she leaving this vehicle here? And then gone outside to make contact with her. It's plausible that had he been looking through the windows and paying attention, that he could have seen the rifle as the jacket swayed open, or could have seen the barrel sticking out, potentially. It's plausible. But instead, what we see is this guy standing here, leaned up against the wall, playing on his phone and not paying attention to his area of responsibility. This right here is the biggest failure at the beginning of this incident. I hate cell phones when it comes to labor management. Employees, contractors having phones and playing on them and not paying attention to what's going on. It is the biggest cancer, I think, to society. It robs people of their situational awareness and makes them as aware as a freaking rock. It makes people stupid and just completely aloof to things. I fall victim to cell phones as well. I'm not perfect, right? Like, there's times where I'll be on my phone and I'm probably looking at the screen more than what I should. But when I'm on assignments, I'm working, I try to maintain situational awareness by briefly looking up, doing a scan, and looking back down at the phone. If I have to have the phone out. If I'm doing work, I try not to be on that phone as much as possible. Especially when it comes to, a security gig of something like this, because you're just not paying attention when you're glued to your phone. Like, why does he need to be on his phone right now? What's he doing? Is he watching TikTok videos? Is he scrolling through Facebook? Most likely. It's not likely at all that he's doing something work-related there. He's probably not reviewing video camera footage at the church on his phone. He's probably not reviewing, memos or anything like that. It's highly unlikely he's doing anything work-related there for the church. Could he be doing something work-related for the agency that he works for? Potentially. But most likely, he's just playing on his phone, on social media, and just not paying attention whatsoever. I get it. Sometimes security gigs get extremely boring. And that's a good thing that they're boring, because, if there's shit popping off, that means bad things are happening. If you finish your shift and you've been bored the whole time, that's great. That means nothing bad has happened. But you need to be aware of your surroundings. And by getting lost in a phone, you're doing not only yourself a disservice, but you're doing your client and the people that you're in charge of protecting a disservice. You're putting them at risk when you play on your phone. You can, like I said, try to maintain better situational awareness by briefly looking up, doing a scan, looking back down, seeing what you need to look at, and then put the phone away. So number one, don't be playing on it. Only use it for work-related purposes. And when you bring it out for work-related purposes, while you're looking at it, look up, look around, look back down, read what you need to read for a little bit, look up, look around, look back down, read what you need, look up, etc. Right? Like, repeat. And then put the phone away. Otherwise, you're just not going to catch things like you need to be. So as I said, it's plausible that he could have seen the rifle as she walked in. But we don't know that for sure. But what we do know is that as she's walking in, he's on his phone, he's glued to it, and completely misses her coming in. Then he puts his phone down, walks forward, and then eventually someone else comes up to tell him about a person with a gun. Now that person, or the woman with the gun, she was not able to get into the sanctuary. And I would suspect that most likely, once services start, they lock most of all the exterior doors except for maybe one or two main ones. And then if you need to leave to go do something, you're going to have to come back in a different way than what you may have. Or they may lock them all. I don't know. But with as many doors as what there probably are in this large of a building going into that big main sanctuary, it would make sense to lock from the outside a bunch of those doors and only leave but a couple to be able to go through. And that way you could have those few doors covered more easily with personnel versus having to have 20 personnel for 20 different doors and then having personnel stretched very thin. It's a good thing that she wasn't able to get into the sanctuary, because if she was able to get in there, like I said earlier, you just don't know what the inside would have been like. Who knows if anybody would have acted to stop her in a timely manner. She could have just started firing blindly into that large crowd of people and hit something. It would have been a shotgun effect at that point. She would have hit someone just firing into the crowd. But anyway, back to this guy. So he walks forward. I guess he got bored with what he was looking at on his phone and goes up. I'm assuming that he's probably looking through the door or something like that. And then boom, someone comes up and says something. And you start to see the crowd acting differently. Like, they notice something's going on. Holy shit. And then boom. Right there. Face to face. He fires some rounds. I don't know how many rounds he fires, but he fires some rounds. And then you can see what looks to be misses, especially when we get to his body cam footage. You see little dust plumes kick up, especially right back in there. I'll hit rewind 5 seconds. So pay attention to the background here. Boom, boom, back there where the mouse cursor is. So he's missed a couple rounds. Right? So this goes back into firearms training. The first few rounds, the first round you make, that's the one that counts. Don't know for sure. They have not released autopsy or anything like that. It's plausible that he could have shot her in this interaction right here. And it's plausible that he could have shot her more than once. Just because someone's been shot, it does not mean that they're going down. To stop a person with gunfire or other weapons, you get physical incapacitation or mental incapacitation. And just because a person's been shot, it does not mean that they're going to be immediately incapacitated physically or mentally. A person's will to fight can have a lot to play in whether they continue the fight after being shot. There are some people who've just been shot once and were shot in a non-critical area. They could have been shot in the foot or the hand or, part of a leg or arm that didn't have, arteries and stuff like that. And just the pain from it, the fear from it, mentally shut them down. But they were physically capable of being a freaking nightmare, all right? They were physically capable of continuing that fight and killing more people. But they felt a little pain, they felt a little bit of fear, and boom, they're mentally incapacitated. Physical incapacitation. You can hit people in critical areas and still not achieve immediate physical incapacitation. One famous case that is often cited in firearms training and law enforcement training is the FBI Miami shootout back in the 1980s. The FBI was tracking down some armored bank robbers / bank robbers. And it was two dudes, and they finally caught up to them. They finally found where they were. They started following them, and they attempted to make a traffic stop on them, and boom, gunfight erupts. During the beginning phase of this gunfight, one of the robbers takes a round to the head, and it temporarily knocks him out. The other guy takes a round to his chest area, to the side of his chest area. The round goes in and hits the heart area, but it does not immediately incapacitate him. It's a fatal hit. He would eventually die from that, but it is not immediately incapacitating. That guy goes on to continue to fight, and he ends up seriously injuring multiple FBI agents and kills 2 FBI agents in this gunfight. The first dude, who was temporarily knocked out from being shot in the head, wakes up in the middle of this gunfight, crawls out of his damaged vehicle, and goes back to one of the FBI vehicles and commandeers it and tries to take off in it before Ed comes up and dumps rounds into him. So, not all rounds that go into people have the desired effect. Sometimes, after being shot multiple times, people can continue to fight. So you have to be on your game with shot placement, especially with handgun ammunition. All handgun ammunition sucks. I don't care what caliber you have, 9, 40, 45, 44, whatever. It all sucks in comparison to rifle. So if you know you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle and bring your friends with rifles. But with handguns, there's lots of people walking around today who've been shot multiple times and they're still alive. Not so much with rifles. There's not a whole lot of people walking around who've been shot multiple times with rifles. People tend to die when that happens. Not everyone, but most tend to die. So, like I said, I don't know if he actually shot her or not. But it's plausible that he could have, and they just haven't, mentioned that or released that in their information yet. But it does appear that he does miss at least a couple rounds, because you see the little dust plumes in the background from the rounds striking the ground. But firearms training, why is it so important? Because your first hits, they matter. They count. They are going to be what stops that gunfight from going on any longer. The longer a fight goes on, the higher the chances you have of being shot yourself. So the faster that you can put incapacitating rounds on target, the better. Now, this happened quick for this guy. Very quickly. He starts to go around that corner, and then boom, she just materializes and starts to swing a rifle upwards. Now, let's try to back it up just a little bit more to see kind of what he's doing. Back it up a little bit more. All right. So we'll hit play, and we'll try and track his movements here. So he starts to go around. He starts to pull his gun out, and he has this gun, what appears to be in a very low ready. You see his arm kind of dangling there, and then boom, she comes up. So at this point, once that gun comes out, it needs to be at more of a ready position to where it is. If imagine you're standing at a target, and you've got your gun aimed at that target. You're aiming for the heart. The way he needs to be positioned is he needs to have his gun down just a little bit, so that if he was aiming at a target, he would be aiming at the target's gut or its groin area. Have it at a more high ready kind of position, because he knows the threat is in that general area. And as he's advancing toward that area, that gun needs to be up and ready to engage. Now, with that being said, there are multiple people there. And you have to be conscious of your muzzle and where it's pointing at, because you don't want good people being shot. In this kind of scenario, I think it would be more important to have that gun in your arms in a position so that you can very quickly just make a slight upwards movement, put sights on target, squeeze trigger, and put rounds on target. What he's doing, or what it appears he's doing, because we do have this one person that kind of blocked him a little bit, it looks like once he pulls his gun, he's having it pointed at the ground, and as he's advancing, it's down, and then once she comes up, now he's having to take that gun that's pointed at the ground, or pointed very low at the ground, and bring that all the way up into his sights, try to get a two-handed grip on it, sight her in, and then deliver rounds. So I think that had some influence on him missing those rounds on her. I think that if he would have had that gun in a more high ready kind of position, that he would have been faster on the target on her and could have potentially stopped that threat right then and there. And the boy would not have likely been shot in the head. Once contact occurs, he disappears. And he stays disappeared for the duration of this fight. And he does not come out until that alcohol control officer starts getting loud with his verbal commands, and it's making it obvious that the situation is now under control. Until then, he fucking hides. And that's another failing point right there. The lack of a proper fighting mindset. Lack of a proper fighting mindset. So we'll fast forward real quick to his body cam footage. And his footage doesn't start until later because he doesn't activate it until he goes into his little spider hole there. Listen to all those gunshots. We know there's people out there in that hallway area. There does not appear to be any dust kicking up at the entrance area where he's at. There's no telltale sign of rounds impacting that area where he's at. So he should know that he is not right then and there being directly shot at. Yeah, she may have popped some rounds off at him at that beginning of that interaction, but right now where he's at, he doesn't have any incoming fire coming in. If she was shooting at him in this position right here, there would be a big old dust cloud from that wall being eat up with rifle rounds. the sound of those rounds impacting. He would have been able to hear that. So he should know in this moment he is not being fired upon. She's firing somewhere else. Where is she firing at? She's firing at other people, obviously. Does he know exactly that there's other security personnel involved? And that's some of the gunfire that, we probably hear too is, return fire from that officer. But he doesn't know for sure what's going on. All he knows is he has dealt with a person who has a gun, and there's gunfire continuing. And it does not appear that any more gunfire is coming to him. And so that should say that gunfire is going out towards other people. Every gunshot you hear is someone dying and or being disabled or disfigured for the rest of their life. This should have been the moment that he came out of his little spider hole there and put rounds into her, started hunting her down. When there is gunfire going on, you hear gunfire, and it's not coming at you, but when you hear gunfire and it's going out somewhere else, that's the time to be moving rapidly, aggressively. You are hunting a hunter, hunting a monster. You move with purpose towards the sound of that gunfire. And you look to make that gunfire stop. So the other failing point is in this moment right here is his fighting mindset. He doesn't have it. He is mentally incapacitated at this point. Fear has robbed him of reasonable thinking at this point. And, no matter the amount of training that you do, you just can't take that out of people. You cannot put that into people. Some people. They're just some people, they can go through the dog and pony show of all the training. They can perform very well in their training, make high scores. Hell, be the marksman of the team. But if they don't have the true fighting spirit in them, that's their chemical makeup. That's how their brain is wired. There's just some people, you cannot change that about them. They will always be scared. All right, so this woman right here, excuse me, don't know what her purpose is. I don't think that she's armed. You see her coming out, and you see something on her side right there. I think that is a portable radio. So a lot of people, for whatever reason, don't put their portable radios on their belts. They clip them to their damn pocket. I don't understand this. I don't know why people do that. I don't think it's the greatest place to be putting a radio at, because it flops around too much, and it's just not a great place to be securing a radio at. If you're having to put a radio in or clip it to your pocket for whatever reason, the best way to do it is to have the radio actually inside the pocket itself and the clip be facing out of the pants, facing out to the rest of the world, versus clipping the radio onto the pocket so that the radio itself is hanging on the outside and facing the rest of the world. When you do it like that and the radio's facing out to the rest of the world, it flops around a whole lot. It hits things. You have more likelihood of that thing coming undone and losing the radio, especially when you start running, because it's just not secured very well to that thin, loose fabric. When you invert it, so to speak, and have the radio on the inside of the pocket itself, that pocket kind of becomes like a radio holster in a sense, and it secures that radio better and makes it less likely that it's going to fall off or come lost during a struggle or while you're running. Other than that, the best place for a radio is on your belt, and preferably in a pouch. But anyway, she takes off going towards that area, and then quickly turns around and goes back in through that door. What her function is, I do not know. And the fact that she's probably unarmed means that she's almost kind of useless right now, especially out there. Now, that door she goes into, where she goes at past that point, I don't know. She could be going to a control room. She could be going to where the cameras are and trying to direct other people on where they need to go. Could be going to a phone, making that 911 call, being able to provide very updated information to dispatch, based off what she's seeing on that camera. She could be telling the dispatcher verbatim what she's seeing exactly right then and right there, real time, and the responders who are coming will know exactly where everything's going down at. But I just don't know what her function is. If it's she does go into a camera room, then yeah, she's useful at that point. But right now, her going out into this area without a gun, she is useless. She is a freaking bullet magnet at this point. And this is why I have such a huge problem with unarmed security. Especially when venues or places try to have exclusively nothing but unarmed security, because they're a bunch of cheapskates and want to go with the cheapest option. So when it comes to the security industry, there's a couple different pricing points, so to speak. And the main difference is armed security versus unarmed security. The rates are usually noticeably different. And a lot of clients, a lot of potential customers, they want to go with that cheaper option. So what do? They hire unarmed security because it's something they can afford more easily. When stuff like this happens and you have unarmed security can't do shit except soak up bullets if they're right there in the area where the fight's going at. Otherwise, they're going to be like everyone else. They're going to be running away and going in through locked doors and going somewhere else, right? You can have unarmed security, but it has to be augmented with armed security. You have to have someone there armed to be able to deal with things. All right, so the rest of this footage, not much to see other than her walking around and doing her crazy stuff and then eventually going down. The better footage that we see is this and then the other body cam footage. So, after she goes in this area right here, we'll see two people come from this angle over here. Fast forward it. Alrighty. So, here is the ABC officer, Adrian Herrera, I think his name is. So alcohol beverage control officers, and I don't know, we got 50 states, so some states may be slightly different, but at least here in Kentucky, our alcohol control officers, although they are sworn law enforcement, they're not typically going out doing normal, quintessential patrol police work, right? Like, they're not going to calls and stuff like that. They're more of a regulatory type of position. They go out to liquor stores and bars and nightclubs, and they check to make sure that those places are in compliance with the alcohol laws that are in that state. They may also take on some responsibilities for tobacco laws as well. So they may go into gas stations and stuff and make sure that they're following the laws and the regulations in regards to tobacco products. And here in Kentucky, at least, in order to apply to ABC and be hired by ABC, you have to be a certified peace officer, meaning you had to have been hired by another agency and gone through the academy. To my knowledge, ABC doesn't hire people and send them to the academy. They mostly hire people who are tired of doing actual police work, or people who have retired. Now, does Texas do the same thing? I don't know. It's possible that people could be hired into alcohol control and have that title as law enforcement officer, but, haven't done any other police work before. It's just, it's hard to keep up with all 50 states and, all their entities and how they do things. So I just don't know how Texas does it. So there's one of two ways this guy is law enforcement. It's either A, he was hired by the ABC in Texas and has no prior law enforcement experience whatsoever, or he does have prior law enforcement experience and was hired that way. He is wearing plain clothes, so he is obviously one of their MAs, their ministry assistants, and he is the only, well, not the only one, but he is the only armed person there who's got a set of balls. The other person that has a set of balls is that unarmed dude that comes up there with him and pretty much stays with him during the duration of this gunfight. I don't know who that second person was, but the fact they don't have a gun, or at least don't appear to have a gun at all, and they're right there at the front line, and probably, and the fact that they probably don't even have a gun probably tells me they probably don't even have body armor either. But yet here they are in the thick of things, have the opportunity to stay behind these closed doors, have the opportunity to run the other direction. Chooses not to, chooses to stay with this lone officer who is going to deal with a threat by himself, essentially. So, I mean, look at him. He's right on his heels, and he does not appear to have a gun at all. So, yeah. I wish I could sit at a table with these two men right here and share a drink. Not just share a drink, but buy their drinks. Huge set of balls between these two guys. They've got what I was talking about, the fighting mindset, that fighting spirit. So there is a quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it because I don't have my phone, or at least I don't know where I put it at. But there's a saying about warriors and, the one. So Hercules, I think is the way his name's pronounced, says out of every 100 men, 10 shouldn't even be there at all. Like 80 or, they're okay, like 9 of them, they're great fighters, but one is the warrior who will bring them back. And this guy right here, he exemplifies that. He is the one. Because out of all these other officers there, he went to the front of the line. Essentially by himself. Because the other dude with him doesn't even have a gun. And he's engaged in this fight all by his lonesome. And then this guy, he too exemplifies being the one. He don't even have a freaking gun. And he's up here at the front line. Warrior fighting mindset right here. These two guys exemplify it. These others, nope, not so much. And look, and still, this guy with no gun, he's forward of the guy who has the gun. I don't know how I don't know what kind of pants they wear or how they keep their pants on without them breaking. But it's a good pair of pants right there to withstand those big balls they got. He fires quite a few rounds, and then you see him come back at one point, and he does what looks to be a tactical reload. So if I can back this up just a little bit. There we go. So let me hit play here so you can see that. So he's working that corner or that curve in the wall. So it's kind of like a curved wall. So he's working that corner, so to speak. Fires some rounds, and then he comes back to take a different position. Can't see very well. It doesn't look like the slide's been locked to the rear. It could be. We just can't tell in this grainy image. But he does perform a reload at this point. I just don't know for sure if it is a forced reload, such as an emergency reload, or if he's doing a tactical reload where he may have some rounds left in his gun and he's just wanting to switch that mag out with one that has some extra rounds in it. But based off how long he does that and the fact that his support hand goes back to his belt, that makes me believe that he did a tactical reload. Now, tactical reloads are taught in some places. I've learned it in a couple different places, but I'm not the biggest fan of doing a tactical reload. In my opinion, if you're going to be doing a reload, the procedure for that is you reach down for your fresh mag, bring it up, bring it to the gun that's in your workspace, eject the old magazine and let it hit the ground, and then insert your new magazine into the gun and work the slide. That, I think, is the best way to do it. Because you were more quickly putting a fresh mag into that gun and then getting that gun into fighting condition. And a lot of people say, why you rack the slide, if it still has a round in the chamber. And the reason being is when you do that for training and you want that to happen in real life, the reason why we do that for training purposes, to make sure that we do it in real life, is because in training, you can recognize the fact that you have a round in that chamber. You got one in there, right? Like, you have not underwent the stress of being shot at and almost killed. You have not got to that moment to where you may have missed something. And so by running that slide, you are actively ensuring that you do in fact have a round in that chamber. Because during the stress of that fight, you could have fired the slide lock and under tense movement either cause that slide to go forward, or the magazine itself could be bad and it could have gone forward on an empty mag. And then once you insert new magazine and you go to get back into the fight, boom, you're going to get a type 1 malfunction. Remember, when you're doing training, you're not so much teaching your forebrain for the fight, you're teaching your midbrain for the fight. You're teaching the caveman that's inside you. You're teaching the animal brain. And when you do multiple repetitions to make quote-unquote muscle memory, which a lot of people hate that term, when you rack that slide in training, that is something that under stress you should do without even thinking about it. It'll just be an automatic response. And then that way, if during that stressful moment of that fight you didn't notice that the slide had locked and then it accidentally went forward, or the magazine that was in it was not the greatest and the slide actually rocked forward on an empty mag, whatever, you will have automatically racked that slide and that gun will for sure be in the fight. Now, are there merits to the tactical reload? Certainly, yeah. The biggest is you're able to retain ammunition on you and be able to continue to fight if you need to. Yeah, that sounds really great. But has it ever happened? I can't recall any incident out there where someone got into a gunfight, fired some rounds out of their first magazine, did a tactical reload, put a second mag in, retained that first mag, blew through the entire second mag and maybe blew through their entire third mag, and then went back to that very first mag that they retained. They had a few rounds left in it and was able to successfully end that gunfight and win the fight with that one retained mag. I don't know of any incidents where that has happened. And I would suspect that if that has happened somewhere, all these huge proponents of tactical reloads would be knocking our doors down with this case, and it would become an obnoxious recital of this information or this case. You would hear about it nonstop. Well, this happened at such and such has happened, blah, 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 blah. We just don't hear that. Why? Because it's never fucking happened. Not saying it can't happen, because like I said, the merits of it are good. But I just don't see the point in doing a tactical reload. The only way that I could see maybe, tactical reload being useful or something like that would be if you are in a flooded environment where there's a lot of water on the ground and you wouldn't be able to recover your other mags later. Because my method, where you drop that magazine to the ground, you can still recover that magazine later. You just briefly look down at the ground, spot where it's at, move your foot, the tip of your foot to it, move your eyes back up to the threat area, if it's safe to do so, squat down, pick that mag up, and put it away. You can't very easily do that in a flooded environment where there's a bunch of water around, right? Or in a very low light area where there's a bunch of foliage and stuff. That probably may not work for you. So in those kind of environments, sure, if the opportunity presents itself, you could do a tactical reload. But as far as it being the first option to go to, the first thing to be taught and trained to do, I don't think it's the greatest thing to do. Because, like I said, number one, I don't know of any incidents where a retained mag won a gunfight. And then secondly, as you're fumbling the magazines, you increase the chances of dropping them. So now, if you take a magazine out of the gun and holding it in one hand that is also holding a fresh magazine that has a bunch of bullets in it, and then you accidentally drop both of those damn things, now you only have potentially one round in the gun, one empty hand, and now you're going to have to make that choice to bend down, squat down, and pick one of those magazines up. And when you pick one of those magazines up, are you going to be able to accurately and quickly pick the magazine that has all the rounds in it versus the one that has some rounds missing, and be able to put that full magazine in the gun and get it back in the fight? Well, in a gunfight, that's probably not going to happen. So you're probably going to have to reach down to your belt and pull that, most likely, that last magazine off your belt and put it in the gun and get that gun in the fight. So, I'm not a big fan of tactical reloads, if you couldn't tell already. All right. And so, right about in here is where he starts to give his verbal commands to this woman, and starting to get loud. And that right there changes the dynamics of everything. Once he starts getting loud and verbal and making it appear as though he is definitely taking positive control of this scene, that is where the others come into play. That's where they gain their confidence. Because now they're like, oh, there's someone up there who's dominating the space. Now it's safe for us to come up there. Now we can go. Whereas beforehand, it was nothing but a bunch of sounds of gunfire, and they were too timid, too scared to come forward. But once this guy makes it pretty clear that he's now dominating this area, now they all grow a set of balls, and now they all come up there. All right, so we already talked about the first guy. Not impressed with him whatsoever. Now let's get to where he comes out. At least he's shouting blue, 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 telling them, please don't shoot me. So his third failing point comes when he's trying to figure out where he is at. He don't know where he's at.
I need EMS ASAP.
You have a kid, tell him.
Yeah, I already did. What's the fucking address of it?
How do you not know the address of where you're working at? Was this his first time ever working here? It's plausible. I wouldn't say very likely, but it's plausible. Typically, when large venues like this have uniformed officers who are working for them in an off-duty capacity, they generally use the same people, right? If it's, the church paying the city of Houston to provide officers, yeah, there could be different officers there from weekend to weekend. And again, like I said, I don't know how that is set up here. I don't know what's going on. But if you're going to be at an assigned area for a good majority of the day, you should know the freaking address of where you're at. So that when something happens, you can rattle that off. At the very least, if he is on the clock, or if he has, we know he has a radio, he's talking to dispatch. If he's working in an off-duty capacity, he needs to have checked out with dispatch to let them know exactly where he's at when he arrives at his workspace. That way, when he gets on the radio and he says whatever his unit number is or his designator, and they haven't heard him all day, and he pops up on the radio, they can check their system, their CAD system, and see, oh, well, he's at this 3700 Southwest Freeway, or the 3700 Timmons Lane, whichever it is, I don't know. And know that when he says shots fired at my location, well, that's his last checked out location was this address. They should know where to send people. So that should, number one, at a minimum, should be going on. But secondly, he should be knowing the address of where he's at. So another failing point on this guy for not being prepared. This guy, I think, in my opinion, he just lucked out on being able to get an extra detail, an extra security detail to pad his pocket with some, extra overtime cash, whether he's working for the city or he's, working directly for the church. And he's careless. His head is not in the game. An interesting thing is some random person, it looks like,
I got
comes
gloves.
up.
What you need?
Okay, take the weapon. Take the gloves off.
He comes from this side over here. So the ABC officer eventually moves out of the way and comes up over here.
No, that's the shooter. That's the shooter.
And this guy comes up asking if this person needs help. He appears as though he may work for the church in some way. He looks like he has some type of credential around his neck. But he just comes up out of random and tries to check on her. And then, of all things, he grabs the freaking gun.
Watch out. Hold on. No.
Like, who the hell is this guy? and I don't. And again, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if he's working for the church or if he's like a guest there or whatever. But that orange thing around his neck tells me that's the credential. But aside from that, another failing point, in my opinion, is this officer failing to take good positive control over this scene. Once he told that guy to get back, it should have been very clear for this guy to get the hell back. And based off his actions and, the way he's acting and talking, this guy does not appear to be someone who needs to be picking up a gun anyway. So, if he's not security, then why is he picking up a gun? Why is he touching this gun? And if he's not security and he's picking up this gun, this officer should have knocked him the fuck out. You have no idea who this dude is, and if he's potentially going to come up and finish the job that she was unable to complete. Not all active killers work alone. Some of them work in pairs. Not a lot of them, but historically there have been active killers who have worked in pairs. Probably the most famous that you know of is Columbine. The two students there, the two friends who went in and killed people, worked in pairs. So if this dude who's picking up this gun is not security, then this officer failed in taking control of this and acting appropriately. Like I said, if this dude's not security and he's picking this gun up, this officer should have made sure that he's not going to pick that gun up, and the only thing that he should be picking up is his fucking teeth. So again, a lack of fighting mindset, a lack of aggression. All right. Let's go into this other failure of a person.
I think there was about 6 to 8.
So there's a bunch of people standing around. So we got the camera person themselves. So that's one. Then we got 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think maybe a sixth person is there. What the hell are these people doing? Why are they all standing around jaw-jacking? Don't they have a job to be doing? This is probably one of my other big pet peeves when it comes to security events like this, is security congregating and hanging around jaw-jacking. Number one, you're not paying attention to what the hell's going on around you, most likely, especially in a big group like this. Now, if it's two of you and you're positioned properly, you could be looking over that person's shoulder and seeing what's behind them, and that person could be looking over your shoulder and seeing what's behind you, and you're still maintaining situational awareness and you're talking about pertinent stuff. Or you could still be jaw-jacking a little bit, right? But still maintaining good situational awareness. These people have a circle jerk going on. They're in a circle, jaw-jacking, talking about whatever the hell it is they're talking about. And I guarantee you, they're probably not paying very good attention at all to what's going on around them. So aside from the lack of situational awareness and what's going on, the other thing that's going on is, from the client's perspective, they're paying people to do nothing but stand around and talk and do jack shit. So when it comes to the security standpoint, or security business stuff like that, that's something else to think about. If the client does not like what they see, will they hire you again? Or will they go with another vendor or go with someone else? Chances are, if they don't like what they see, they're probably going to go somewhere else. But most likely they're going to be cheapskates and try to go with someone cheaper, right? But certainly if they see people just doing nothing, that's not going to sit well with them. And unfortunately, when it comes to the security business, there is a lot of sitting around and doing nothing, right? It's not like everyone has to be, rolled up and dragged outside, right? There's a lot of just standing around not doing anything. And when you see groups of people standing around not doing anything and just jaw-jacking, that makes it look bad for you. And not only does it make it look bad for you and not being able to, be invited to come work again or, lose your contract, it also creates in some people's minds, the guests there, that they're not actually safe. Because when they look around and they see security just standing around a circle jerk, they recognize, hey, these people aren't doing anything. They're not even paying attention. I'm not really safe. And then that could drive away people to not want to come back. So as a security manager or supervisor, who, if there's one of them in this group, one, they should recognize the fact, what's going on, that there's a bunch of people standing around, and they need to squash that. They need to do away with it. If the supervisor is someone else, well, what's that supervisor doing? Are they actually paying attention to the staff on what's going on? Or are they themselves standing around jaw-jacking and doing a circle jerk thing with someone else? There has to be, I guess you could say, like a sergeant of arms, so to speak, an operations person at large events like this. Someone who is on top of labor management and making sure that people are in their assigned areas doing what they are supposed to be doing and not standing around in a circle jerk like this. So this is another failing point. Could some of these people have been positioned up in this area forward of here to where that other officer was? Were they supposed to be over in that area? I don't know. I would say that it's possible. It's possible that one of them could have or should have been with that other guy, or at least closer to him. And if they were closer to him and this thing popped off, they could have been the one to change this thing all around and put incapacitating rounds on the threat and stop the threat and prevent this from going any further and preventing that little kid from being popped in the head.
That they actually put as part-time employees. I don't know how they did it with their agency.
So at first, they don't even recognize the fact that it is for sure gunfire. And this is not uncommon. This actually happens a lot. When you fire guns inside buildings, or in urban type of areas, the way the sound echoes off things inside a building, the way the certain materials absorb that acoustic energy, it may sound different. It may not sound for sure like gunfire. In other active killer events, some people said they thought that, it could have been party popper things, fireworks going off, something being dropped. There's been times, things like books, like a stack of books being dropped and they hit the ground, and the way they hit and the way they echo, it could, sound similar to gunfire, right? Or gunfire could sound similar to books being dropped on the ground. So lots of different things that make noises in a structure that could make people think that it's not actually gunfire. But also going into mindset. People having the mindset of it's not going to happen to me. Being in condition white. And these people are clearly in condition white at this moment. And I would say that probably the majority of them are of the mindset of it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen to me. They're probably of the mindset of I'm making easy money right now on this security detail from this rich church. Let me adjust the screen brightness here. So, at first, they are not even sure that it's gunfire.
Where are people running?
Wire lock. Wire.
3639. We're at Lakewood Church. We need units now. We are at Lakewood Church. We need units. We need to go.
So these two completely fail at life. They totally fail at doing their job. These are, again, two people who just don't have that fighting mindset. They don't have that fighting spirit or warrior spirit in them. When they should be moving forward towards the sound of gunfire, moving forward to back up the other officer. Instead, they hide and they let that officer go forward by himself without backup. They left his ass in the wind. That's cowardice. That's not just malfeasance and dereliction of duty. That is fucking cowardice right there. These two do not need to be working at all. I hope that after this incident, these two were removed from duty. But unfortunately, that's probably not the case. They're probably given a promotion or a friggin' award for their actions. But yeah, they don't need to be working at all. A complete failure on their part. One of them recognizes the fact that they should be moving forward, but they just don't. They're just overtaken by fear, and they don't want to go forward and do anything. The sheriff deputy, the male, same thing with him. He hangs out in this corner over here and doesn't do a damn thing until the other officer makes some loud noise, and he starts rushing in with everyone else. Same thing with this guy. Cowardice. He failed to act. He failed to go back up another officer, another good guy in this fight. Does not need to be working anymore. I mean, and this is Texas. Like, did this guy and those two girls, like, where the hell did they come from? Did they come from that Uvalde police department? Like, what the hell is their problem? The boy, so they have not talked about who shot him, but he was shot in the head. It's possible that during this gunfight, one of the officers who fired potentially hit him in the head. It's also possible that the mother shot him. It sucks to think that one of the officers, one of their rounds missing, could have hit him. But I hate to say it is what it is, but that's a sad reality with gunfights, especially involving law enforcement, is there's a lot of missed rounds in gunfights, and there's a lot of missed rounds in police gunfights. Law enforcement, although they do have large budgets, they don't have the largest budgets that they need, and sometimes firearms training takes a hit. You can only do so much firearms training with people because of budget constraints. The rounds cost so much money. The time for them spending on the range costs so much money. The overtime they have them on the range. The scheduling of having the instructor on the range, especially if they work the road or something like that, and having someone cover them while they're teaching. There's a lot of things that go into play that limit agencies on how much firearms training they do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of agencies who think that qualifications are training. Qualification times are not training. You're qualifying. That's all you're doing. You are saying that on paper, this person was able to fire X amount of rounds from these different positions, these different distances, and put a scoring hit on these targets in a non-stressful environment. That's it. You're meeting a bare minimum standard. And sometimes this qualification only occurs once a year. You cannot call that training. Some agencies qualify more than once a year. Some agencies go well above and beyond, and they qualify 4 times a year. But if that's all they're doing is qualifying, I'm sorry, that's not training. That is not training at all. That's just qualifying. You're just jumping through a hoop to say that you met a standard. For many law enforcement officers in this nation, the only good training they ever get is at the academy. And that's because the academy has them for a set amount of time. For a few days, for a week, that academy has them from start of the day to end of the day to do firearms training, and they can fire a lot of rounds in that training. Once those officers leave the academy and they go back to their agency, they'll do a lot of qualifications. At least, at minimum, they'll do one qualification a year. And then, when it comes to actual firearms training and practice, it's very limited. It will never, most likely, it will never be the same as what it was when they was at the academy. Agencies just cannot replicate the amount of time and the amount of rounds that the academies can put people through with firearms training. When an agency has someone working the road and now they need to go do firearms training, well, if it takes 2 days, let's go back. Let's say the academy does 1 week of firearms training. In order to replicate that, you would have to take an officer off the street for a week from morning work hour to end of day work hour and have them do nothing but firearms training to be able to replicate what they get at the academy. You can't, that's impossible. You just can't do that. All these different officers on shift being taken off rotation. Great. It's just not likely to happen. So, once an officer leaves the academy, their skills start to degrade. These are perishable skills. If you are not training and practicing at a certain level, they are diminishing. Every day past the academy, their skills are dropping. And some officers, they're not gun people. They don't do this stuff on their own time. There are some cops who the only reason they have a gun is because their employer gave it to them. There are some cops who've never had a gun or touched a gun before they became the police. So there's a lot of cops out there who just suck with guns. And when the only time they had good training was 1 week at the academy, and now they're 5 years in and they've never ever replicated that again, their skills are not what they were when they left that academy. They're a lot lower. So it's possible the kid got shot by one of the cops, but it's also possible that the mom shot him too. You know, the mom could have been doing a murder-suicide kind of thing with the kid. I mean, why else would she bring him to this thing that she's going to do? Why would she go become an active shooter and bring her kid with her? I think that the kid was going to die anyway. As sad as that sounds, I'm not trying to make excuses for, any missed rounds from police or anything like that. I just believe that the kid was going to die anyway. I believe that the mom was probably going to murder him and then unsubscribe herself from life after that. I mean, what are the odds that the mom brings the kid inside this building, does the active shooter thing, and then says bye, and then goes her own way, right? I just don't see that happening. I seriously see or think that she was going to kill him anyway and then kill herself. Sucks. It really does. It's horrible. All right, so that's it pretty much. Not much else to say about the events of this incident. That ABC officer, the alcohol control officer, like I said, he is the one. He was the warrior. He was the one to go forward and bring an end to this fight. And it's unfortunate that all these other officers who were there did not do anything. And it's unfortunate that if they're still working, they're still working. That's probably one of the most unfortunate things, because we've seen how they are going to react to a deadly force encounter. They're not going to act. And the idea that they could still be out there on the road working is mind-blowing. It's sad. It really is. All right. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.